Howdy. You know, this almost seems like plant murdering. It's so dry out here this year. 2019 ain't been a good rain for two months at least. I got all these bulbs here from my mall. I think they're irises or something like that. And I'd like to see them do what they do best. Make beautiful flowers, but it's so dry. That's right. But we'll put them in the ground. We'll see what happens. Yeah, you're right. We could use a flood. We could sure use a good hard rain. Kind of the opposite of drought. Makes me think about this spring. This spring now, we had all kinds of rain. Two of the biggest back-to-back rains in about a month I ever seen back here. You know, I even have footage of it. You want to see it? Okay, let's do it. Think about rain. Flooding, that is. Stream does to a private driveway, and obviously this pipe ain't enough. Don't carry enough water out here. What you be looking at here, water bubbling up out of a field. Now how do you suppose that happened? Well, there'd be a little cave up the road here from here. Cave in flood stage is bubbling up right here. The road starts to work its way across. Then this water pours into this, what used to be an old lady's garden. Meaning it used to be a garden, but it ain't no more. Down by this nice pear tree. And what this will do, if enough time elapses, this will fill up like a great big pond, and then it will overflow down this way by the road, down toward our property. Now you can see some bubbling way over here toward this bank. Smaller versions of the bubbles I see across the way. Here would be about half hour later. You probably can't get a very good look at this, but the water is starting to get ponded up. I'd say awfully close to the level of the creek, of the road. You can just see the level, and it's coming out this way and probably headed down. It's now approximately 7:30, so I'd say it filled up in around an hour. Comes the water down my neighbor's. Here you can see it's dry. The water is going to come right here where the light, there it is. It's headed our way, and it's coming pretty fast. This is not in a sinkhole. This is just in a pathway. So maybe this is just kind of a normal part of the process and small bubbling. I don't know. Or maybe there's a bit of a fissure or a crack down in there, letting the water up. See just a little bit of the creek here. Now what you have to understand that this is bone dry down through here. Most all the time. This is maybe a 6-year flood to get this going through here. I want to get a view of the waterfall. I do not know how long this stream of water has been flowing into here, but it is a right impressive amount of water. And the longer it can take water, the more you'd think you'd have a good channel down underground here. This is what I call the 20-foot cave. That's right, because it's 20 foot and it's full up to the mouth. We don't have no water running into it yet, but it's just running in back in here. It's working its way down into what from the underground is almost a second entrance. You can kind of see the water just going into there real fast. It's rolling along here, something fierce, and working its way down. This what's left of the waterfall has been reduced down to maybe, I don't know, is that a foot? I wanted to show you how this water comes down here, and you see just a tiny whirlpool. You can see the wood, the little sticks being pulled down in around this whirlpool. This is whirlpooling down into what is almost a second entrance to the 20-foot cave, and so we know there's a pretty good hole that it's pulling into. Now once this floods out, we'll expect the whirlpool to disappear. Well, it's a full half hour since I last filmed, probably 45 minutes to an hour that I've been here. And at first it seemed like this waterfall, it was rising, and the waterfall was getting smaller quite rapidly. But now we do not see the water over the last half hour. It's pretty much maintained its own as measured by this tree. The water maybe went up 3 inches in the last half hour. So I'm fully convinced, or very convinced I should say, that this sinkhole here and the 20-foot cave can handle this volume of water pretty much as long as it wants to. Probably just going underground and pumping it out in the big creek. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot happen here beyond this, unless the incoming water increases greatly. Pretty impressive sinkhole, handling a lot of water. We know from past experience that this here, that little valley, will fill up to anywhere from 8 to 12 feet of water, up is marked by sort of a mud line on the side of the hills. So this does get overwhelmed, but it's not being overwhelmed here tonight. Here be the water the following day, 3 o'clock. It's still roaring down through here. It ripped across my neighbor's driveway. I can't believe it's still running like this. Almost 24 hours later, my neighbor's driveway. Yesterday, I'd say the water didn't get down here to start to come to us till, I don't know, approximately 9 o'clock, maybe a little earlier. So come 9 o'clock tonight, this will be 12 hours of this water just pouring in here. You can see what it looks like. This is the stream, what had been a stream going down toward that 20-foot cave, and the sinkhole that was taking all the water. Evidently it can't take all the water no more. Sure, you can hear that water running down there, down in this little sinkhole. I don't know where right here's the water. The majority of that water is coming, sucking in down through the side or underneath somewheres. It appears that this hole here marks about the high water mark. You can see the grass kind of smooshy down where it poured into there. Now, if you see those logs there, that's where that nice big sinkhole was. Beyond that, right in about that area. This is the side of the waterfall going into the big sinkhole. You can see this don't look all that much different than it did before the rain. Sort of relocated some of these here logs, cleaned off these rocks real nice. Right here at this rather inconspicuous small sinkhole. But what interests me about this sinkhole, do you see anything that might be interesting? What's this right in here? This debris. Now that would indicate that there was a current going into here for some time, sort of sucking it into there. So there might be something worth digging at right here.
Oh, hello, how are you? Good. Just got finished watering my dry, thirsty flowers. Very thirsty, exceedingly thirsty. So dry out there right now. You wouldn't believe how far I had to drop the bucket down the well to even find a little of the wet stuff. That's right. Oh, maybe we could tempt the rain. You know, it seems like, hold on. If you open all the windows in your house, that the rain comes because it wants to make your house wet. That seems to be how it works. Yeah, you ride your horse out through the country and you forget your raincoat, and it's raining cats and dogs. But you go out with your umbrella and you're all ready, looking around, and you watch the weather forecast. There's no rain. That's how it is. Look, I'm not armed. I even, well, usually works like that. I give it some time. Yes. You know, I hear that the king is considering water restrictions, meaning I might not be able to water my flowers. They might even outlaw watercolor, water painting in art world. Outlawing art? Oh, yeah, well, not all art, but watercolor. You know, there's no time like the present, they say. Yeah.
Okay, we have our water, and watercolor is a lot like other types of painting, but less forgiving in the sense that white of the paper is the white. You can't paint your white down. So if you make a mistake, well, you've got a mistake. You have to kind of work around it. Now, to get darker, more intense colors, you get just a little bit of water and you keep swishing it around. You don't keep adding water. So here's a very intense color. You hardly ever see watercolor that intense. Now, if you want it to be lighter, just have a lot more water. And you can see how it's much lighter there, kind of fading at this direction. So for dry brush, you know, the most typical way to paint would just be to have your color mixed at whatever intensity, and you paint whatever it is you're painting. Now, that tends to be unsatisfying to me because, well, it's flat color. So I take another brush and begin to kind of blend it out, blur it, get lighter intensity. And this is where the artisticness of it starts to come into play, just working with the brush and the techniques. Now you've got wet on wet, and with that, it's nice to have another brush that's not going to have any color in it, and just get the brush wet and put down over the area you want to work. And then when you paint into that, you can see how that bleeds in very strongly the more wet it is. If it's a little less wet, you will get less. It can be fun to make little textures in the wet area, but you only have so much time. So do sections no bigger than this for sure, and you can always let that dry and work back over top of it. So wet into wet. And if you're trying to shade this, mostly I like to start with wet onto wet, kind of like I was showing up there. We just make this wet with a clean brush. Start with your more intense color. Let's say that we're trying to make it look like light is hitting the right side and the left side is in the shadows. So being really careful with how much we put down and using this other brush kind of as a blender, trying to move the paint around. This is something you're really just going to have to practice a little bit before you get to your final one. And of course, then this gets into other things like color mixing. Let's say you want some green on this. You're thinking of this as water. Well, you can do some of that into the wet, and that'd be very effective. But a lot of times it just dries out on you, and you have to let it dry and maybe re-wet it. But you can overdo that if you really do much water and reworking is the paper can start to wear out. Of course, it's best to use watercolor paper or a heavier paper. Thin paper will not hold up very good at all. So you can see how this is kind of mixing in my other colors into that while it's wet. Shifting back and forth between cleaning my brush or using a clean brush. But that's the basic gist of watercolor. Why don't you do a practice? Then when you kind of got the feel, a little feel of it, then you can maybe start your own.
Here's what we could do. I want you to think about your favorite place in the whole wide world that you could be. It could be down by a beach, could be up in the mountains, could be in your room, it could be at the park, it could be back in time, it could be in the future. But you take your favorite place and then you show that location and you show a window into that place, and that window will be related. So here's an example. This person painted, they want to be at the beach, they're looking out of a nice window. Here's somebody who wants to be at the woods and they're looking through kind of a cottage-like window. Somebody else wants to be in the city. And here somebody loves golf and they have this nice ovalish window. Here's somebody wants to go to outer space and have a very simple outline. And lastly, we have someone looking out of a ship window, nice and round, and it looks like, or maybe it's submarine. I think they're underwater maybe even. So it's two different pieces of paper, and you paint your window separate from your background and cut your window out. It's always good to be prepared, yes? You'll never know with the weather and with women.